I told you that I did not believe in white privilege as a punishment. I just meant it as an acknowledgement, as what crimes have done in the past. And then you came and attacked me for that.
I don't believe in collective punishment. I deal with you as an individual. Individual. Therefore, white privilege is a lie. I've asked you very simply to show me the white person that has privilege over me. Nobody stood up. Do you think you have privilege over me?
Yes.
You're crazy.
But I told you, liberal people in general, if you want to talk about who the racist people are, they do. They think that they are over. They think that they are over black people. White liberals, they do. That's why they're always telling black people how to think and what to do. You know, they have this feeling of superiority.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That conservatives really don't.
I was watching this video with Vince Everett Ellison. You guys, he's the best. I love Vince. He's so great. This guy tells it like it is. Anyways, he was at the Young America's Foundation, and he was doing, they do these summits. He was asked about white supremacy. So she asked him this question, and then she starts to cry. It's really funny.
Hi, I would like to preface my question with a couple of words from a fellow American and a fellow Christian myself. So I would like to open with a verse from Leviticus 19, verse 15. It says, "You shall not do injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor." And that, to me, relates to the institution of white privilege and what the liberalists claim that it is. It is not to put white people above. It is not to bring black people down. It is to judge what wrong has been done in the past by white people so we can learn from our mistakes and move forward in this country. And so I am going to be blunt, since you were advocating for violence, such as your example with hanging and Muhammad Ali. I just want to know, what is the point in spreading blatant lies as we referred to before, such as like the liberals were taking over the government to elect black or like liberals en masse. I mean, if you look at our Congress today, it is 70% white. I just want to know why.
Well, that's not a lie, because if you look at the black community, which is what I'm talking about, almost 100% of our representation are liberal. When you go to any city, any majority black district, the person that represents that area is a liberal. So when you're talking about a lie, you obviously don't know what you're talking about, because that's a fact. It's not a lie. Also, when you start talking about what white people have done to America, it's about what a white person has done. I don't believe in collective punishment. I'll make you responsible for what you did. I'm not going to hold you responsible for what somebody else did 100 years ago or what somebody else did today. I hold you responsible for your action. You hold me responsible for my action. In the same way that some white people believe that black people are lazy, shiftless, and ignorant and whatnot. That's not me. In the same way that most of y'all believe they're on their knees begging and slobbering and asking for reparations. That's not me. I don't believe in collective punishment. I deal with you as an individual. Individual. Therefore, white privilege is a lie. I've asked you very simply to show me the white person that has privilege over me. Nobody stood up. Do you think you have privilege over me?
Yes.
You're crazy.
He said you're crazy. White people.
But I
white
told
liberals,
you,
man.
liberal people in general, if you want to talk about who the racist people are, they do. They think that they are over. They think that they are over black people. White liberals, they do. That's why they're always telling black people how to think and what to do. You know, they have this feeling of superiority.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That conservatives really don't. I don't. I've had several conversations with different conservatives, and I never feel anything but a conversation.
Yeah.
But when you talk to white liberals, they're
It's a
always
whole
trying
different ballgame,
to, you know, push something.
It's
I'm
so
like,
uncomfortable.
It's weird. You know.
It's so funny. Listen, first, remember, these are young people out there, right? These are younger people. But she's really up here trying to make this successful man, black man, somehow be a victim. How are you going to make this man this successful and make him feel like a victim? It's not going to happen.
Let's make this absolutely positively clear. You have no privilege over me, and if you got it, show it to me right now.
My parents had generational wealth.
You, what's your privilege over me?
My parents were able to own a house prior to 1960. Their parents were able to own a banking account. They were able to go directly to a bank. They were able to own a house. They were able to get a job, and all of that wealth accumulated through the generations onto my generation. So that is why I was able to... Yes.
You're crazy.
That's not privilege, it's hard work. Look,
Right.
let me tell you.
But you don't understand that there were black people in the 1960s that owned a home.
Yeah, what do you,
Like, was she pretending
there were
like...
rich black people in the 1960s.
There were rich black people that came out of slavery. Yeah, they don't talk about that, do they? They don't talk about the
they don't talk about that
millionaires.
part.
There was like 15 black millionaires that came out
Affluent
of right.
black people.
In Texas,
Right.
in all these areas. Stop with the cap. There are people who, again, I was just telling Danielle, I was watching a documentary. This white guy went to Mississippi to do a documentary on this black guy that owns his family. They own like farming. They do farming. And apparently his father was a sharecropper, and he did so well at sharecropping that something happened with the white guy he was working with, the one that owned the thing, and the white guy ended up losing everything, and those white people ended up working for his father. Mm-hmm. And now they own all of this stuff. Mississippi's a very poor area, but not these black people. They live in a really nice area. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's just every day we farm. We had a habit of work. So this whole idea that all black people in history in America were these illiterate slaves. First of all, everybody that was black was not a slave,
Right.
even in the South. So the whole idea that all black people couldn't read and they didn't have any money, and they was just walking around looking for their parents because they got split up at the auction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just not true.
Well, and then also stop, white liberals, stop trying to use old laws to drive home your point about what's happening today. Mm-hmm. That's what you're doing. She's using an old way of systemically, Jim Crow obviously held black people back. But for some reason, black people were thriving at that time, doing better than ever.
It should have held black people
back. Yeah, it
should
have, right? But it was on the books. It was on the books. You can't do certain, okay, we get it, okay? But you're saying you have privilege. You just said to him, you have privilege over him. That means we're talking about today. Stop trying to use old things to make your point about today. Mm-hmm. Focus on today. If you're telling me you think you have more privilege than this man, he's right. You are crazy. That is, look, all the things that she mentioned is somebody who did hard work to get the outcomes that they wanted. That's exactly what he's done, and his parents did, and his grandparents did. So I'm not sure what her point is here. It doesn't mean that you have privilege. It means that your parents and grandparents worked hard and got what they wanted. It wasn't because they were white.
And also, you're making it seem as though all white people were rich plantation owners.
They weren't.
Only about 3% of white people own slaves.
It's very expensive.
In the entire country, only about 3% of white people own slaves. Most of the white people in the South were poor farmers. You know what I mean? And so this whole idea that white people got some kind of privilege, the only privilege they would have had then was to insult black people, because most of them didn't have a pot to piss in.
Right.
A lot of them were broke in the South.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So this whole idea that just because you were white, you were somehow affluent.
No.
And you had maids and servants, and you guys, no, that's just not true. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or else we would see a whole bunch of now. There's a bunch of poor white people living in trailers. Mm-hmm. Where's their privilege?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're acting as though everybody's situation, you're blanketing a situation like it was for everyone.
It's not.
You know what I mean? And during Jim Crow really should have taken out black people in some way, but it didn't. Black people are much better off during Jim Crow as far as what our numbers in schooling, in marriage, in home ownership, and business ownership during Jim Crow than they are today. Today, all we do is run our mouth and complain about what white people did a long time ago.
Go ahead.
The feudal was just trying to speak.
Yeah. I think you misunderstood me. I told you that I did not believe in white privilege as a punishment. I just meant it as an acknowledgement, as what crimes have done in the past. And then you came and attacked me for that. You are misconstruing what I am saying actively. It is not that I believe I'm better than you or that you are worse than me. I am not trying to punish anybody. I am acknowledging the system that exists.
Was there a question in that?
I was responding to your statement that was untrue.
Which was?
You mentioned something about collective punishment.
Yeah.
I said nothing of the sort.
Okay, you're saying that your grandparents had privilege over me?
They had privilege over yours.
No, they didn't. You didn't know my
What?
parents. You didn't know my people, so you don't know that. There was a whole lot of people that were there. But right now, I'm talking about today. You see, again, listen. Hold it, wait. Listen.
I'm done.
To what end is this? To make white people do what? I mean, what is the end game of this? To do what? To make white people say they have privilege, and to what end? I mean, what do you want?
He's right. Exactly what Vince is saying is what I just said. You're blanketing a system that you assume was everybody.
It's not.
You assume that everybody that came out of slavery was broke. You assume that everybody that was white during slavery was a slave owner. You're assuming that there were no poor whites. You're assuming that they were all affluent. You're assuming that all black people couldn't read out of slavery. That's not true. You're assuming that Jim Crow, which was designed to hold people back, black people back. You're assuming that all of that happened, and it just didn't happen. Black people were much better off then, in a time when we were purposely in law trying to be oppressed, and they couldn't do it. I would say integration was probably the nail
worst,
for black people.
Yeah, we've said that before. That
I'm not saying that we should have. I think there should be. I think that the country should be open just to anybody. But if you're trying to compare then to now, then I don't really know. I think that our legacy, especially our generational wealth, would have stemmed out greater if we would have stayed probably in Jim Crow, because we had more black businesses. People like to go to that, Black Wall Street, as though Black Wall Street, what happened to that, encompassed all black people. It didn't. It was just a small group of people in a small area. But Black Wall Street was not the Greenville area. It was not the only area like that. In Texas, there were tons of Black Wall Streets around in all parts of the country. So the idea that what happened in the past was just, law of what happened to everybody, that's just not true. I think even Robert Woodson talks about the fact that it's not the chain. There were black slave owners.
I'm glad Vince did not fall for that, because what she was trying to do is use her tears to manipulate the conversation to him feeling sorry for her. What she's trying to make him believe is that I am trying to acknowledge that you are, the reason why your people haven't gotten things is because no one's acknowledging the fact that there is black oppression and there is white privilege. And so I'm trying to show you that I'm fighting for you. And he's like, no, that's not what you're doing here. The white liberals say they have white privilege. What do you want?
See, and
You're just wanting people to acknowledge. You're wanting black people to acknowledge this white privilege so you can feel so good.
That's what I'm saying. I think that this white privilege thing there is no end.
There is no.
It's just to say, hey, I'm one of the good whites.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
And
that's why she started crying.
You're not. You don't feel like bad because you're crying because you thought that and we just talked about this with Charlie Kirk. It's this idea that you come up to the podium.
Yeah.
To make a point of view.
Yeah.
And you have no real depth to it. It's just you say something. These liberals, they just say stuff. And they think emotionally we're going to be carried off to it. And then when a black person like me or Danielle or Candace Owens or Brandon Tatum or Chad O. Jackson or Vince Everett Ellison or any black liberal or conservative then doesn't feel sorry for itself, it makes them angry. It makes white liberals angry. Like they literally get upset, cry because they're mad that you don't care or something.
Like whenever I say, that people say to me, "Oh, there's a lot of racism going." If a white liberal says to me, there's so much racism in the world, I'm like, no, there's not. I've said this before to a white person, a white liberal. They're like, no, your race is being attacked, and I'm like, no, it really isn't. Racism is not prevalent in today's society. So when I say that to a white liberal, they're always like, no, you are being oppressed. And I'm like, no, I'm making choices in my life. My choices are either good or bad. Okay. And then that would be that that means that I am in charge and I have agency over myself. So I'm giving myself the responsibility. White liberals hate that because they need us to feel like we need them, and the mere acknowledgement that they're saying that we have white privilege, they think that that's saying, oh, look, like Kara's saying, I'm the good white. This girl, is just making her upset that he didn't immediately go, thank you so much for acknowledging that we definitely have been oppressed.
And it's probably because she's been
himself.
Online and she's been watching black people run their mouth about feeling sorry for themselves.
Annoying.
And she wants to be on the right side of history.
Yeah.
She wants people to think that she's a good person and that she acknowledges pain. And this whole idea of white people throwing themselves under the bus all the time to justify why black people commit crimes and have broken families. You can stop it. Okay, because that isn't it. Black people make mistakes because black people make mistakes. Our family structure is broken down. And once you break down our family structure, which happened with the welfare era in the 60s when it happened, but also happened with a lot of the rhetoric from the 60s. A lot of feel sorry for us movements.
Yeah.
And it broke down black men. They started leaving the family. Black women became single mothers. I mean, and that happened quickly. That wasn't like something that took time.
Drugs.
That actually happened quickly. And then if you look at, as you can see, as we've progressed, our neighborhoods are unsafe. Our kids aren't learning anything in school. We're like 30%. We have a 30% marriage rate. Our single mother rate is skyrocketed. We are the highest in abortion. That you cannot blame all of that on slavery. Since out of slavery, most people got almost 80%, 85% marriage rate in the black community. The black schools were better. Most people went to church. Most black people owned a home. Most black people owned a business. So we were doing better 100 years after slavery than we are today.
Black people, so the black community. And I know white liberals like this girl and a lot of the audience are really I know y'all really want it to be the government stuff. Okay, I know y'all want it to be something like that, right? But it really isn't it. I'm trying to tell you, the problem with the black community is deeply spiritual. We have a character problem in the community. It has nothing to do with your privilege, as you're saying, your phantom privilege that you think that you have, has nothing to do with white supremacy, nothing to do with the government, none of that stuff. Because the moment someone said, "Oh well, the white man put the drugs in the communities," okay, then I say to you, here's where your character problem's wrong. Who took the drugs? Who's selling the drugs? Who's doing the violence? Who's having the babies without a father in the home? Who's not getting married? Who's doing it? The individual is doing that. That is a character problem. That is not a white supremacy problem.
No.
That is not a white privilege problem. That is not Trump's problem. That's no one's problem. The problem is the black community, not all, but most, are having a huge integrity character problem. And it's spiritual. It's a spiritual war. And so this is why when I hear people like Jesse Lee Peterson say that he doesn't believe in racism and that racism is not things that made up word or whatever like that, on a huge level, he is correct. We all know there are people who do not like black people or do not like another race. We get that. But even that is spiritual. That is good and evil.
But it can happen to anybody, though, and it is. White people have a single mother rate that's higher than it was.
Double.
2% at one point.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like 30%.
Yeah.
Like theirs is going up too. So if you think that you're exempt from it happening to your culture and our culture's bad. But your culture is coming pretty bad too. You guys listen to crappy music.
The methamphetamine problem is huge in the white community.
So don't think it can't happen to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
Because it is happening to you. The white culture has changed from the 50s. And we're not having kids in wedlock like they were before either.
We're having
It's worse. It's less than ours, but it is much worse. It's 3 times higher. The single mother rate in the white community is 3 times higher than it was before the 60s.
If all those categories of people, all their numbers are going in the wrong direction, right? Black, white, and other, going into the wrong direction, that means that as a society, we are having a problem with decency and values and principles, integrity, character. These are all problems that we're having. It's showing, the numbers are showing that the country, people, individuals are going in the wrong direction. Yeah. And if you're telling me you're going to blame that all on some type of, racism or something, you're simplifying something that's more complex. It really has nothing to do with that. Sitting up here as a young white woman and trying to explain to an older, successful black man that he has no privilege is crazy.
But it was your brain. It was your brainwashing that got you to think that, courageously up there to say something stupid. And then you got knocked down, and so your only alternative is, which happens to all of these liberals, is either cry, get mad, or leave.
Right.
And that's when she chose tears. Because she didn't have an answer. She wasn't sad. She just didn't have an answer. And so she thought, how am I going to get off the stage? Well, I'm going to get off by just crying and using my feminine manipulation to get over on this man and say he attacked me. He didn't attack you. You came up there and made a statement that it was wrong and he didn't agree with. And you got to deal with what it means to, and this is again, liberals. You have to deal with people not agreeing with you. When people don't agree with you, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, stupid, or don't understand. I disagree with a lot of liberals, and I don't think they're stupid. I just don't like their policies. Yeah, you know what I mean? We literally just don't agree. They know, they understand what they're doing. They're not, a lot of these liberals, they're just going along to get along, just saying whatever the right is. Some people actually understand, and I still disagree with them. You know what I mean? But this kind of statement here, where we start trying to talk about who's more privileged, well, we all are privileged in our own way. Yeah. You have height privilege. Right. There's privilege everywhere that we get, just simply from existing. And I just don't understand why people just cannot let it go. You cannot right the wrongs of the past. You can't right the wrong of the past as far as you can't make it that it didn't happen.
No, and that's what
it just happened, and now you move on.
Yeah, and like no one's saying to pretend that it didn't happen. I'm not going to sit there and it would be ridiculous of me to say slavery didn't happen. That's stupid. Of course it happened. It happened everywhere, right? Of course it happened. But it would be kind of dumb of me to blame anything that any of my mistakes or anywhere my hardships or anything where I've fallen short in life. It would be just irresponsible for me to just not take any accountability, and just the accountability is solely lies on white people in the government.
Right.
That doesn't even, you see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like I said before, any mistakes I've made in my life, it's because I made the mistake. I messed up. Any good things I've done in my life, it's because I did that. It isn't because I have any kind of like privilege or something. No, it just means I did something good.
Right. Our founding fathers owned slaves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But do I wish they didn't exist? No. They created America. Yeah. It's a great country.
Look.
They did some things right. Stop pretending like everything that they did was wrong. No one lives their life 100% wrong. Even people who are wrong most of the time. I mean, a broke clock is right 2 times a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So stop with this whole the blanketing a system that you don't even understand. Like slavery, it still goes on today in mostly black and brown countries.
Right.
By the way. Just want to let you know, there are really no white countries, I can't think of any, that have slaves. It's mostly happening in black and brown countries. But I don't hear anybody talking about that. Not a black person, a brown person, or a white person in America talking about that. That's going on. And then secondly, slaves at the time, slavery was just a normal thing. One time I was watching Jesse Lee Peterson, and somebody said to him, he said, how did you deal with Jim Crow? Like, he said, how could you, wasn't it horrible? And he said, well, it wasn't good or bad, because this is what he knew. So that's what I would say. Like, people would say to people that were like Gen X or Gen X or the boomers, and a lot of kids today would say, how did you go without computers? And things like that. Well, it wasn't that horrible. It wasn't good or bad. We didn't have it. So
yeah.
we adapt to what the rules are of the time. So I'm not saying slaves enjoyed being slaves. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it was a system.
It was a way of life.
That for many years in biblical times was a way of living. That was a thing. Servitude, doing service. It's not right. No one ever said it was, but it was a system we don't understand and we weren't a part of. So even during Jim Crow, I wasn't part of Jim Crow. That wasn't my generation. I look at that and I think, I can't believe that black people couldn't go into the same building. But when you talk to people from that time, a lot of times they will say it wasn't great, but they don't know any different because that was the system that they were just in. They were born into it. That is the system. They don't know anything other than that.
This type of mentality this young lady has is what is dividing this is what it is. This is what is dividing the country. Because people like this are hell-bent on making sure that we all just stick in the same mind that there was a 1960. It's like they don't want black people to think differently. So much so that a young woman is going to tell a successful black man that he has no privilege. This is how warped that it actually is. It's dividing.
The reason why I bring up black slave owners is because she's not even acknowledging that.
Yeah, she's not.
She's not acknowledging that there were several black people that owned black people.
Yeah.
There were Native Americans that owned black people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she's only condemning. Why is it? And this is my next. Why is it that white people are the only people that get in trouble for slavery?
Yeah.
When Africans owned Africans, that's why we were over here. That's how we got over here. We got over here is because we were enslaved in Africa. Africans fought war battles and they enslaved each other and sold each other to the colonizers. So this whole idea that she's only acknowledging in America that white people own slaves, she's not acknowledging any other race of people that own black people in this very country.
And I don't mind people talking about slavery. What is bothering me is that you're not talking about the whole part of it.
System.
If you're going to talk about the history of America, you have to talk about the whole thing.
And I just think you have to dig into history more than what people kind of surfacely tell you. Because when you do that, you will see that everybody had a hand in this situation. Everybody had a hand in this situation. And it wasn't just black people marching, because honestly, black people, because we weren't the majority, we wouldn't have been able to free ourselves.
Yeah.
If the entire white country, which was the great majority of the country was white people, if they would have all been racist and wanted slavery, we would have still been slaves right now.
Right. I think we have to move past this. I think we have to move past this. But
stop trying to get brownie points for saying that your ancestors suck, because they didn't all suck.
You're not being a good white. You're manipulating. You are doing. I mean, he didn't even. Man, I love people like him. That I'm not gonna fall for the liberal tears. You're not doing that.
No.
I'm not gonna fall for that. And he spoke to her exactly how he should have spoke to her.
A lot of white liberals feel the need to excuse our behavior instead of letting us be accountable for it.
So you mean to tell me that you think that, these smash and grabs and team takeovers, fighting, these fight videos that happen all the time, all these things, these gang shootings that are happening every day, actually. So you're telling me that all of that is because of white privilege?
No.
White supremacy, all of that behavior, you're telling me that that's based on the fact that black people, someone had to go and steal tear up a grocery store because of white privilege. You think they're all doing that in the name of white privilege and white supremacy? You really think that? Yeah, no, you don't. Vince Everett Ellison is everything.
Yeah, go to his channel. He has a good channel.
I love Vince. He's so great. But anyways, let's know what you think about this. Leave some comments below. Do you think white privilege is a thing? Leave it all below. And that's it. We will see you guys in the next video.